Hi, this is Sarah, and in this short video, I'm going to reveal a weird little secret that will let you start speaking any language you want in just 10 short days, while practicing for just 30 minutes a day, with no textbook, no grammar drills, no classes, no flashcards, and without studying any vocabulary at all. In fact, even though this might sound impossible now, once you watch this short presentation and do what it says, this rapid language learning technique I'm about to show you has been used by over 25 million ecstatic men and women around the world. You'll feel like you suddenly have the magic keys to the language center of your mind. You'll finally be able to take that trip to Italy you've been dreaming of and talk to locals with confidence. You'll shock your date, not to mention the waiter, when you order wine in absolutely perfect accent-free French. You might even get a leg up at work by being the one person who can speak Chinese and impress clients at dinner. And I personally promise you what I'm about to teach you will work, no matter how old you are, no matter how bad you were at foreign language in school, even if you flunked high school Spanish or French and got an F on every test, no matter how busy you are, and no matter how many times you've tried and failed to learn a new language before. Even if you've hired a private tutor, took intensive classes, studied for years in high school, or invested in expensive software and were disappointed like so many people are with the results. So why has learning a foreign language always seemed so hard, even though it should be the easiest thing in the world? I don't know about you, but the first time I tried to learn a foreign language, it wasn't fun and easy. It was a nightmare. In 7th grade, I was forced to sign up for French class. Every day, I'd shuffle into the classroom, cram myself into one of those uncomfortable desks, and spend 45 minutes trying to force myself to pay attention to grammar rules, sentence constructions, and endless, painful vocabulary lists, all while hoping like crazy that I wouldn't be called on to explain the difference between present perfect and future imperfect, or something else ridiculous like that. Now, here's the really sad part. I was a pretty good student. But even after 3 years of French, even though I knew tons of vocabulary words and conjugations, I still couldn't speak the language as well as your average French 2-year-old. And I felt embarrassed and dumb every time I opened my mouth to try to talk to someone who did know French, someone who'd grown up with the language or just picked it up by living over there. Finally, like so many people I know, I just gave up. I resigned myself to never being able to speak a second language, to feeling like there was something wrong with me, and to always being disappointed and ashamed. But then a few years ago, I stumbled onto a simple question that changed everything for me and opened a door that led me to speaking fluent French in less time than I ever thought possible. What's the big question? Well, it sounds kind of silly, but here it is. Have you ever seen a 2-year-old studying a vocabulary list? I'm totally serious. Think about it. If you've been around kids at all, you know they suck up language like a sponge. It's almost like they can't help themselves. They're like little language learning machines. But kids don't study grammar rules, take vocabulary tests, or sit in a classroom to learn how to speak. In fact, we don't teach kids to speak at all. We just expect them to do it. They learn by doing what humans have been doing for thousands and thousands of years. Listening. You actually discover that adults can learn a new language much faster than kids can. Honestly, learning new languages so fast is a survival mechanism. Language is what makes us the dominant species on the planet, and if we couldn't learn languages really fast, we simply wouldn't have survived as long as we did. In fact, when you look at how the human brain works, you'll discover that in a weird way, you already know Spanish, you already know German. Every language on Earth is structurally pretty much the same and is embedded deep in your mind. And right now, as you watch this video, you already have the ability to almost accidentally pick up any language you want in no time at all, in the same way you can sing along to thousands of songs you never meant to learn. The fact is, humans remember sounds and store them away in our memory automatically and unconsciously, even when we're not paying attention, which means we can soak up languages incredibly quickly without really working at it at all. In fact, working at it by studying a textbook or taking a bunch of tests is a great way to make sure you never learn a foreign language, or that it takes you years and years of tedious work. When I finally figured this out, I was shocked and a little mad. But more than that, I was blown away by how quickly French phrases that stymied me for years suddenly just made sense. And at how my mind just opened up to new words, phrases, and ideas like a hungry bird waiting for a worm. So if learning a language is so easy, why don't you speak 2, 3, or even 4 languages right now? Great question. Here's the answer. Back in the 60s, a professor at UCLA and Ohio State named Dr. Paul Pimsleur got really frustrated with the way we teach foreign languages to kids, and downright embarrassed at how few Americans could speak anything but English. Looking at the way we taught language in schools, Dr. Pimsleur wanted to figure out what we were doing so very wrong. So he started to really study the way children and polylinguists, folks who know 3, 5, 7, even dozens of languages, pick up language so quickly, and compared it to the rote memorization drills we teach in school. Now, you've probably never heard of Dr. Pimsleur, but he's kind of a celebrity, often referred to as the Einstein of language learning. Why? Because just like Einstein, he thought way outside the box. And after years of research, he figured out a simple system to almost magically install a new language into any person's mind so that they can start speaking in just 10 short days. Let me just share with you the big ideas Dr. Pimsleur discovered that make learning a new language an absolute snap. First, Dr. Pimsleur discovered that despite what your high school Spanish teacher says, repetition actually destroys your ability to learn a new language fast and can set you back years. Instead of endlessly repeating words, Dr. Pimsleur discovered there was a magic interval between repetitions that caused new words and concepts to stick in your mind, and that when his students studied a new language according to this magic interval, they could permanently pick up words and phrases after just 3 or 4 repetitions, instead of the dozens or hundreds it would take before. Second, Dr. Pimsleur showed that learning to write a language before you speak it, like we do in our school system, is destructive and a complete waste of time. That's certainly not the way little kids learn. Years and years of research, not to mention a lot of everyday proof, shows that the only way for the human mind to rapidly acquire a new language isn't by studying textbooks or using software. It's by hearing the language used naturally in an everyday context and interacting with the language so it really sticks in your mind. As Dr. Pimsleur was fond of saying, when you know what sounds right, everything else is easy. Need proof? Think about this for a second. If I say, I bread needs, does that sound right to you? Of course not. At a deep level, your brain knows that the phrase should be, I need bread. And that has nothing to do with you learning grammar rules.